the fusion of Zen and the samurai spirit. In the dead of night, a single candle flickers in a medieval Japanese castle. A samurai warrior sits motionless, his breathing barely visible, his mind as still as the ancient stones beneath him. Tomorrow, he will face death on the battlefield, yet his face shows no fear. This is not just bravery, this is Zen. The year is 1561, and Uesugi Kenshin, one of Japan's most formidable warlords, prepares for what will become one of the most legendary battles in samurai history. But unlike the Hollywood image of samurai spending their eve of battle sharpening swords or drinking sake, Kenshin sits in meditation. This practice, deeply rooted in Zen Buddhism, was as much a part of his warrior preparation as any physical training. But how did these two seemingly contradictory paths, the way of the sword and the way of enlightenment, become so intrinsically linked in Japanese culture? The answer lies in a fascinating fusion that shaped Japan's warrior class for centuries. Picture yourself in medieval Japan, where the clash of steel and the subtle whisper of temple bells weren't as different as you might think. For the samurai, the battlefield was not just a place of violence. It was a domain of absolute presence, where a single moment of mental distraction could mean the difference between life and death. This is where Zen found its perfect warrior disciples. Imagine standing on a battlefield, arrows whistling past your head, the thunder of hooves approaching, and the clash of steel echoing all around. How does one maintain clarity in such chaos? This was the fundamental question that drew samurai to Zen. The answer lay not in escaping fear, but in moving through it with a mind as clear as a moonlit night. Take the famous story of Uesugi Kenshin's morning ritual before the Battle of Kawanakajima. While his generals anxiously awaited battle plans, Kenshin spent an hour in zazen meditation. When his advisors protested this waste of crucial planning time, he replied with words that would echo through Japanese history: "The clearest water flows from a still pond." That morning, his tactical decisions would save thousands of his men's lives. But this wasn't just about personal preparation. Zen transformed the very nature of what it meant to be a warrior in Japan. The samurai discovered that the same mindfulness that helped them find peace in a meditation hall could help them move with deadly precision on the battlefield. They learned that the Zen concept of no mind, mushin, acting without conscious thought, was exactly what they needed in combat, where thinking could be slower than instinct. Consider the art of drawing a sword. In the hands of an untrained warrior, it's a simple action. But for a samurai trained in Zen principles, it becomes something entirely different. They called it no sword, the idea that the perfect cut happens by itself, without the interference of conscious thought. This isn't just philosophical poetry. It's practical combat psychology that modern sports scientists are only now beginning to understand. The relationship between Zen and the samurai wasn't just about combat effectiveness. It offered something far more profound, a way to face death. In an era where warriors could be called to sacrifice their lives at any moment, Zen provided a framework for understanding mortality that went beyond mere acceptance. Through Zen, samurai learned to see death not as an end to be feared, but as a natural part of existence, as natural as cherry blossoms falling in spring. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of samurai culture: their apparent fearlessness in the face of death. Western observers often mistook this for fatalism or disregard for life. In reality, it was something far more subtle. Through Zen practice, samurai developed what we might call a death-proof mind, not one that denied death, but one that fully accepted its reality and therefore transcended the paralysis of fear. Take the famous saying, "The way of the samurai is found in death." To modern ears, this sounds harsh, even brutal. But through the lens of Zen, it takes on a different meaning. It's about living so completely in the present moment that the fear of future or attachment to past dissolves. When a warrior truly embraced this teaching, they found not despair, but an intense appreciation for every moment of life. The integration of Zen into samurai culture wasn't just philosophical, it was intensely practical. Consider the morning routine of a 16th century samurai. While Western knights might have spent their mornings in prayer or military drills, many samurai began their day with zazen meditation. This wasn't seen as separate from their military training. It was an essential part of it. One of the most compelling examples comes from the time of Oda Nobunaga, perhaps Japan's most famous warlord. Despite his reputation for burning down Buddhist temples that opposed him politically, Nobunaga himself practiced Zen meditation regularly. His personal writings reveal something fascinating. He found that the mental clarity achieved through Zen practice helped him make better strategic decisions. In one famous instance, during the siege of Mount Hiei in 1571, he credited his meditation practice with helping him maintain emotional detachment while making difficult tactical choices. But how exactly did Zen training translate to battlefield effectiveness? The answer lies in what the Japanese called mind like water, mizu no kokoro. Imagine a perfectly still pond. When you throw a stone into it, the water responds perfectly to the stone's impact. No more, no less. It doesn't overreact or underreact. It simply reflects reality as it is. This was the ideal state of mind for a samurai in battle. Take the example of the legendary swordmaster Miyamoto Musashi. His writings reveal how deeply Zen influenced his approach to combat. He speaks of reaching a state where the sword swings itself, a perfect expression of what Zen practitioners call no mind. Modern neuroscience has a term for this, flow state. But the samurai were exploring these concepts centuries before Western science began to understand them. The training methods were remarkably sophisticated. In many dojos, warriors would practice drawing their swords thousands of times, not just to perfect the physical movement, but to reach a state where thought and action became one. They would sit in meditation before and after practice, learning to observe their own minds. Some would stand under ice-cold waterfalls in winter, not as a test of endurance, but as a way to practice maintaining mental clarity under extreme stress. One particularly interesting practice was known as sword meditation. A warrior would sit in front of a naked blade, maintaining perfect stillness while contemplating their own mortality. This wasn't meant to be morbid. It was a practical tool for developing the kind of awareness needed in combat, where the slightest lapse in attention could mean death. The influence of Zen extended beyond individual warriors to shape entire military strategies. Take the concept of Wu Wei, spontaneous action, from Zen philosophy. Samurai commanders learned to make decisions not through lengthy analysis, but through intuitive understanding developed through years of practice and meditation. This led to a distinctive style of battlefield command that emphasized flexibility and immediate response over rigid planning. Consider the famous Battle of Okehazama in 1560, where Oda Nobunaga achieved one of history's most remarkable victories. Despite being outnumbered 12-1, Nobunaga maintained perfect composure. His decision to attack during a thunderstorm wasn't just tactical brilliance. It reflected the Zen principle of acting in perfect harmony with the moment, seizing opportunities as they arose naturally. But perhaps the most profound influence of Zen on samurai warfare was in its approach to fear. Rather than trying to eliminate fear, Zen taught warriors to observe it without being controlled by it. There's a famous story of a young samurai asking his Zen master how to overcome fear in battle. The master replied, "Let it pass through you like the wind through a garden gate. The gate doesn't try to stop the wind, it simply remains what it is." This approach to fear and death created warriors who were, paradoxically, both more effective and more humane. Because they weren't fighting from a place of fear or emotional turbulence, they could often make clearer, more ethical decisions in the heat of battle. Many historical accounts tell of samurai who, having achieved this state of clarity, showed remarkable mercy to defeated enemies. The sophistication of this spiritual martial synthesis reached its peak in what came to be known as Sword Zen, Kenzen Ichinyo, the principle that the path of the sword and the path of Zen were ultimately one and the same. This wasn't just poetic metaphor. It was a practical training methodology that produced warriors of extraordinary capability. The relationship between Zen and the samurai didn't end with Japan's feudal era. In fact, it transformed into something even more remarkable, a set of principles that would influence warriors, leaders, and practitioners around the world for centuries to come. Consider the story of Yamaoka Teshu, a 19th century samurai who lived during Japan's rapid modernization. As firearms made traditional sword combat obsolete, Teshu transformed his sword school into what he called no sword, a practice that emphasized the mental and spiritual aspects of warrior training over physical technique. His students included some of the last traditional samurai, but also modern military officers and civic leaders who sought the same mental clarity that had served their predecessors so well on medieval battlefields. This transformation reveals something profound about the Zen samurai relationship. It was never really about fighting at all. The true aim was the development of what the Japanese called fudoshin, the immovable mind. This quality, prized by medieval warriors for its combat applications, proved equally valuable in any situation requiring clear judgment under pressure. The meditation techniques developed by warrior Zen practitioners were remarkably sophisticated. They didn't just sit quietly. They developed specific methods for maintaining awareness during action. The goal was to maintain the same quality of awareness in motion as in stillness, a skill as valuable in today's fast-paced world as it was on the medieval battlefield. Some of these practices survive today in unexpected places. Modern special forces units around the world have begun incorporating mindfulness techniques remarkably similar to those used by ancient samurai. Business executives attend Zen retreats to develop the same mental clarity that helped samurai commanders make decisions under pressure. Even professional athletes have begun exploring these ancient methods of mind-body integration. One of the most powerful lessons from this tradition is the concept of shuhari, the stages of mastery. First, one follows the rules precisely, shu, then breaks from them, ha, and finally transcends them entirely, ri. This pattern, first observed in warrior training, applies to any path of mastery. It teaches us that true expertise isn't just about accumulating knowledge, but about transforming ourselves through practice. As we face the challenges of our own era, from personal stress to global crises, the wisdom developed by these warrior monks becomes increasingly relevant. Their techniques for maintaining clarity under pressure, their methods for integrating mind and body, and their approach to facing uncertainty offer valuable tools for modern life. The message of Warrior Zen is ultimately one of transformation, that through disciplined practice and direct experience, we can develop extraordinary capabilities. As we face our own battles, whether in boardrooms, on athletic fields, or in personal struggles, this ancient wisdom offers a path forward. Thank you for watching this exploration of the profound connection between Zen and the samurai tradition. If you've enjoyed learning about this fascinating aspect of Japanese culture, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the like button. Your support helps us continue bringing you more insights into Japan's rich historical heritage. Until next time, remember the words of the Zen masters. True victory is not about defeating an enemy, but about maintaining peace within oneself.